Hello, I'm so excited to host you, Tyler. I know you're just so busy with Netflix show, and thank you for coming.
Oh, thank you, Ken. I'm so excited to be here and looking forward to doing some readings here in the future.
Yes, thank you so much. And I've been watching your shows, and I'm helping you. Your books being translated into Japanese, and I'm so happy to be your host today for the Japanese people. And I'm sure people who are watching this may have seen your show, but maybe can you introduce a little bit of yourself and what you do?
Sure. Well, my name is Tyler Henry, and I'm a medium. I'm 28 years old, and when I was 10 years old, I had my first psychic experience. Now, a medium is really just a conduit for information, kind of
Hmm.
something that's in the middle between two things. And as I had my first premonition when I was 10 years old of my grandmother's death, that kind of unlocked a series of experiences that ultimately led me to believe that there was a more interconnected nature to reality. And there were moments when I was just in the right mindset where little pieces of the universe would kind of pop in and reflect that interconnected nature.
Hmm. And your book will be in Japanese here and hereafter, and also being between two worlds. And can you just touch on a little bit of what you wrote in your books?
Absolutely. Well, Between Two Worlds was written when I was 19 years old, and
Mm.
it was technically a memoir, and it's kind of funny because it's usually written when people are elderly. So it was kind of like a vegan menu. Like it was quite thin.
Memoir for 10 years.
That's right. Yeah, there wasn't a lot to go over, but yet there was, and that was kind of the interesting thing is there was so much experience packed, really from the ages of 10 to 20. Uh,
Hmm.
that book touches on, but Here and Hereafter focuses more on the philosophy, the ideas, all the different realms of belief, and how we can use belief to our advantage. And the book really promotes self-awareness, regardless of what we believe about mediums, about spirituality. I think we all can benefit from getting to know ourselves more, being more whole, and aspiring to create.
Hmm. And and I've seen your shows, and during the live sessions, you sit down with the client, and just you connect with the person on the other side. My understanding is that you keep receiving messages or symbols from the reading or the communication.
Yes. So my process is deeply internal. There's a lot of misunderstandings around mediums that,
Mhm.
we see people walking around, and that generally is not what happens. There
Uh-huh.
have been some exceptions to that rule, but
Uh-huh.
generally it's a deeply introspective process akin to active imagination.
Mm.
So while people often think of the imaginary as not being real,
Mhm.
I found that the imaginary, greatly informs epiphanies, realizations, great inventions. I think creativity deeply relates to intuition. And so as I've kind of learned how to get into that altered state of mind,
Mm.
I basically just receive these very subtle moments of meaning. And it relies heavily on the premise of meaningful coincidence that me and the client are meeting, and that
Mhm.
whatever is exchanged at that place and time that is made sacred is
Mm.
going to allow for someone to move forward in a way that they weren't before. So that's kind of the premise.
I see, I see. And it's so exciting to see how people are getting healed when you tell who's on the other side, just telling that she loves her daughter, and beautiful stories. And so is communicating with the other side inspiring for you?
Oh, deeply. It's not only my job, it's my life. And
Mm.
every waking moment, I'm thinking about it in one way or another. It really has shown me the importance of seizing the moment, of really looking past the boundaries and barriers that people sometimes put up, and really the value in meeting people where they're at and
Mm.
taking people for what they're worth, no matter who they may be. It allows us to move a little bit more easily and with less baggage. So my
Mm.
abilities informed, I think, not only my approach to work, but my approach to my personal life.
Beautiful. It's so amazing. I've met many mediums, and sometimes their information is accurate, but the way they convey the message is sometimes disturbed. So the message comes out totally different. It could be so scary, could be threatening, and your message is so healing. That's why I have a huge respect for what you do.
I really appreciate that. Being a teenager and starting in this industry 10 years ago or so, it was a very different climate for mediums. And so it was
Yes.
very important for me, even with how I would dress. I would try to wear light colored clothing that wasn't like black and depressing and gothic, as much as I love the goth community. So for me,
Ah.
I had to do certain things to kind of, reflect that this was more about life
Hmm.
than anything morbid, and that while the macabre has a place in positivity around attitudes of death,
Hmm.
what I do is really more about the continuation of life and the value we can get from that.
Beautiful. So, from your experiences communicating with the people on the other side, what would be the messages that you often get for the people who are left behind?
I would say the universal message, if there is one that comes through, seems to reflect a life review process.
Mm.
Every single individual that I have connected with in one way or another, now over the course of thousands of readings and
Hmm.
over a decade, they all have reflected some degree of a greater understanding about how they lived and how they died.
Mm.
And it seems to me, in a similar sense, that a sixth grader is at a certain level of intellect than perhaps a 13-year-old, and
Mm.
this said is radically different than a 50-year-old. There are
Hmm.
certain kind of levels of evolution of growth that is just a natural byproduct of the continuation of consciousness. So that's a thing.
Wow, wow. I have many questions. I ask around my friends, you know what? If you had the privilege of interviewing Tyler, what would you ask? And then people are very interested in just learning. Is there any way that you can communicate with your mother who passed away or father who passed away on an energetic level,
I
even if you're
think
not psychic?
everybody, I think, on some level is a soul and therefore has varying degrees of sensitivity on that level. I think of there being emotional intelligence,
Hmm.
and then also on some level spiritual intelligence, and everyone's kind of operating to different degrees. So
Hmm.
I think, introspection is a great start as we kind of build these inner worlds. I think there's more to work with that then gets reflected in the outer world, kind of akin to like a Jungian perspective.
Hmm.
Synchronicity is a big part of that inner relationship. So I would say, the subconscious is a great wellspring of
Hmm.
inspiration. Dreams are one of the primary ways that subconscious information comes through, but not everybody remembers their dreams. And while there are ways to increase dream recall, like through journaling,
Hmm.
and other kind of methods, creativity and being able to get into flow states seems to enhance the likelihood of intuitive information coming in.
Hmm. Very interesting. You may not know that Japanese people have usually have a altar in their homes, and then we have pictures of our parents and grandparents, and we casually talk with our parents. So it's part of our culture. So we feel like we are talking with our parents and grandparents on a regular basis, especially once a year. There is this Obon time in August where all the souls from our ancestors come back to us to greet us. So we do a celebration. So we are very familiar with talking with deceased people, and but it must be a little shocking for North American people when they talk about what I going to talk with my mother who passed away 20 years ago. So how do you kind of deal with this skepticism around mediumship and
Yes, there are so many, realms of belief around mediumship, and spiritualism as a whole started in the 1800s in the
Mm.
United States and then went over primarily to Europe and then actually ended up coming back to the United States. And
Mhm.
now it's in a resurgence. And I would just say that, on a larger level, if you look at when mediumship became popular, it was at a time when science was taking off and when there were a lot of possibilities. Radio waves started getting kind of quantified and understood. There was understandings around radiation.
Mhm.
Marie Curie was actually a spiritualist. Um,
Right.
her work as in radium. So she was, a fascinating character in her own right, but it was a time in which anything felt possible.
Mhm.
And I think now we see a little bit more of an emphasis on mental mediumship
Mhm.
versus its inception, which was physical mediumship. The moving of objects, and kind of the performance aspect of how spirits can affect physical reality.
Yeah, so I'm so happy that North American people are now welcoming mediumships more almost like very naturally, and it seems like people seem to take it very naturally and casually about what you give them as reading.
Yes, it definitely seems like there has been a cultural tide that's shifted. And I think in many respects, there's a kind of an aspect of starting off as something that's amusing and kind of a caricature. And then our society becomes more familiar with these concepts and these people, and people start taking things a little bit more seriously. And so we've kind of seen that evolution since the 60s of, when you say psychic, most people can think of maybe a handful of, public figures that, are kind of just equated to this character is the best word. So I think now we're in a time where people are more comfortable sharing their experiences and realizing that a lot of people have psychic moments.
Great. Yeah. So, and I see live shows that you're doing on Netflix, and pretty much I look at your schedule. You're pretty busy. And how do you keep your energy up in a certain way in the midst of all these chaotic things?
For me, I've really learned the value of viewing meditation not just as a practice, but as really a lifestyle. And for me, it's been really necessary for how overwhelming and intense the information can be, and very much having to kind of separate my own thoughts and feelings from the thoughts and feelings of other people. That navigation, is kind of an implicit challenge, but I think it's something we all, have some degree of proclivity to in varying capacities.
Yes, because you need to have certain boundaries. You need to have your alone time to be away from all the energy, right?
Absolutely. And that's probably the biggest thing. Ironically, while information comes from the subconscious, sleeping and going back into the subconscious helps me recharge in many respects. I also find that getting into a flow state, doing an activity where time seems to pass as if it doesn't exist, those are things that both help enhance readings and help me recharge when I'm not doing readings.
Yes, yeah. I'm right now in my retreat center where there's nobody, lots of deer, but so I can enjoy my alone time reading and then I go back to just doing lectures and stuff. So
Exactly. That balance and finding the ability to exist in that middle space is so integral.
and also I'm curious about how you sort of go into the zone of being connected with on people on the other side. Is there any specific ways to kind of zone in? Is it almost like a meditation?
It's very much a meditation. I believe that every reading is a ritual. And in the West, ritual takes on a lot of connotations. I think in other cultures, there's a lot of different, more understandable views of ritual and its value. But for me, when I sit with a person and I scribble, I find that facilitates kind of this altered state of mind that I'm not normally in when I'm not scribbling. And if anything, I think it kind of follows a binary. So culturally across the world, we have Catholics who do rosary beads repetitiously as a means to kind of get into an altered state. Some cultures use drums, the beating of the drum and beating of the drum to kind of create this lull or this kind of hypnotic state, again, between two things. And so my scribbling acts as quite literally as I go left to right, left to right, left to right. I believe in that kind of middle movement. There's something that changes and allows information to come up that ordinarily just kind of is under the surface.
Interesting, because in the show you're scribbling something, but it doesn't seem to make any sense. It's just lines and stuff, right?
Yes, I would have been a good doctor in a past life because my handwriting is terrible. It's really just the scribbles themselves. It's about I would say it's more about the process than the result. Scribbles at the end of a reading are just the byproduct of what I'm doing. They are not implicitly the messages.
Okay, so and the next question I want to, there are a couple more before we end. So do you receive some information specifically for you about what you're going to do? Like, am I going to sign? Do I need to sign the contract with Netflix or whatnot?
Right. Well, for me, I've found that it's been primarily health oriented when I have had times of kind of interjection when things would have came in strongly. There was an instance when I was 18, I developed hydrocephalus, which is water on the brain,
Mm.
and due to a brain cyst that was near my brainstem and still exists, and they were not able to remove it. It just got aspirated. But I had a knowingness of this medical emergency that I was experiencing. And then within 3 weeks, this all kicked off. I went into emergency surgery, had a year of recovery. And so there have been times when it's really mattered that it's came. But I find that generally with ourselves, we are often so biased. We have our own hopes and fears and dreams. We have a horse in the race, so to speak. And it can make it very difficult to separate what we hope or fear versus intuition.
Wow, wow. And it seems like you're achieving a lot of dreams in your life. Is there anything that you want to do in the future, personally and also professionally?
I really have always wanted to create some form of a means of giving back academically and encouraging literacy. Reading in a literal sense has been
Mhm.
the greatest joy of my life. But I think that there could really be something to be said for a scholarship oriented around children who have experienced the loss of a
Mm.
parent at
Mhm.
that integral, time frame as they're preparing to graduate and start their lives. So I think being able to have kind of a scholarship of sorts where we, take people in and hear their stories and then give them these grants for good, grades despite going through overwhelming personal strife. There's just something so powerful about that, and it's underrepresented. And we got to talk about, grief and the very real effect and the resilience that people show as a result of it.
Mhm. Beautiful,
Thank
beautiful.
you.
And we are planning to do some event in the future, which is in December. Can I talk about that for Japanese people? Uh,
Yes, I'm
you're so busy, but thank you for taking your time for Japanese people.
Oh, of course. Thank you for taking the time for me. I'm so excited. I'm looking forward to doing it. I have my tree ready, and it's going to be a lot of fun. We'll see
Great,
what comes through.
great, and you're generous enough to give Japanese clients one or two sessions live, right?
Yes, we're going to make it happen. We'll see what comes in,
Wow.
and we'll get into a bit of a flow.
Gonna be so special, and we never know that who's gonna be picked, right?
That's right. We're going to see what happens, and
Mhm.
whoever comes through comes through.
All right. So, is there any word for Japanese people?
Yes, I just want
Before
to thank every single one of you who have been open to the ideas of continuation of life and love. And I hope that you get something out of these conversations. I hope, regardless of belief, it helps make you think and maybe think in a different way, which I think we all can benefit from. We all are stronger together.
Thank you so much, and see you in a month.
Thank you. I'll see you
Thank you.
soon.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.